Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swing and a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk the ball.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Matt Moreno. Matt, today we've got every Dodger fan's favorite topic of conversation, Dave Roberts. Dave Roberts' contract status, as many people know, entering the final year of his contract, a.k.a. he is a lame duck manager. Andrew Friedman has said they expect to have contract talks at some point this winter. He even went as far as to say to Bill Plunkett, I think that this whole dialogue about Roberts' final year and whether he gets an extension is basically just a media-created narrative. What do you make of the fact that here we are, almost into 2022, Dave Roberts, who has been successful when you look at his track record, and he has no contract extension beyond 2022. What do you make of that situation?
It's a little strange, especially considering that, at the start of December, the lockout began, and that put a freeze on, any potential major league signings that the Dodgers and obviously any other team could do. And so I kind of thought, okay, that'll clearly give them time to, perhaps work out a new contract with Dave Roberts. And there hasn't been anything on that front, not even, reports of, and of course, just because there aren't reports doesn't mean it's not happening. But in this day and age, stuff usually does leak. There hasn't been anything saying, hey, the Dodgers and Dave Roberts have finally kind of, started the process of figuring out what his next contract will look like, and it's only a matter of time. So as much as, Andrew Friedman has been consistent in saying, I'm not worried about it, it will happen. Okay, that's great. But now I would just kind of ask, what has taken so long at this point? There isn't really, like I said, much else you can do. Maybe some planning for once the lockout ends. I know obviously it is kind of the holiday season, and maybe executives really took advantage of there being a lockout this year and just completely stepping away from all baseball stuff. So if we get into, kind of the middle of January, another 2 weeks, and there still isn't anything, then I'll kind of really start to wonder, could this be it?
Yeah, I wondered the same. Maybe they're just this lockout's going to drag on until January, February. Let's just take the month of December off and circle back. And I mean, if you want to believe Friedman's narrative, which is, hey, talks are going to happen, relationship is good, nobody's worried about this outside of these walls. The media is worried, fans are worried, but Dave is not worried, Andrew is not worried, nobody here is worried. Then I suppose that lines up with what we're seeing. That there's a reason for maybe what appears to be a lack of urgency. It's worth pointing out, by the way, Dave Roberts, I know he's controversial, but when you look at on paper the way that he has managed in his 6 years, it's pretty remarkable. He has the best record in baseball since being hired. He's won 5 divisional titles in 6 years. He's made the World Series 50% of the years that he has been a manager. He has made the World Series. Of course, he has the one World Series as well. The last 3 seasons, 2021, 2020, and 2019, the 3 highest winning percentages in Los Angeles Dodgers history. 2017, by the way, is the 4th highest winning percentage in franchise history. So he's got the 4 highest winning percentages in LA Dodgers history in 6 seasons as manager, which leads to the obvious question. Matt, should he be re-signed? Should he get a contract that makes him one of the highest paid managers, which we know managers don't make as much now, but should he be one of the highest paid managers in baseball, and should he be a Dodger manager for the next 5 to 10 years?
I guess I don't know if I would go 5 to 10 years. I think I could see, maybe a 3-year contract extension with either a mutual option or a club option for a 4th year. But I think he definitely should have some sort of deal in place and not go into 2022 with that just being the final year on his deal. As much as Andrew Friedman says, the lame duck status is kind of a falsely creative perception and concern, I do think that it would create a bit of awkwardness for everybody, because at the end of the day, as much as I think Dave Roberts and Andrew Friedman have worked well together, the fact of the matter is he's a manager that he inherited, right? He didn't pick him. And I remember back at the time when Joe Madden became available, I thought, okay, Friedman's going to make his move. He's going to reunite with this guy, and he never did. I don't know if that kind of thought process would creep into Dave Roberts' mind. Hey, as much as we get along, I'm not necessarily quote unquote his guy. But I think it would just create an unnecessary possible, distraction for a team that is not going to need it, because they're obviously going to be trying to bounce back from what I think themselves would probably call a little bit of a disappointing season. And, you're already going to have whatever unfolds with Trevor Bauer down the line. And so why add this to that?
It's many of the teams that I root for don't always have as much success as the Dodgers do. And I always look around and say, you know what, folks, the grass is not always greener on the other side. And so I know there are reasons to be critical of Dave Roberts. If you watched our show, Matt, Daniel, myself, we've all been critical of Dave Roberts at various points, myself probably more than others. And yet at the same time, I look around baseball and I say, just because I'm critical doesn't mean I assume we can do better. Look at the Padres. Like, the Padres should be a case study for anybody that wants to go get a new manager. The Padres had as much talent as the Dodgers did. You know, some would argue they had more talent than the Dodgers did. Yes, they had some injuries, etc. But that club was a disaster. It was a dumpster fire. And the manager gets fired.
Yeah.
And you could basically say the manager deserves a lot of the blame for that. You look at the Dodgers, everything they went through with Bauer, with all the trades, with all the re-signings, the guys they let go, etc. And yet he keeps it all together. He makes the World Series 3 times in 6 years. They lose in the NLCS last year. So it's not like they didn't have a successful season, although not as successful as you wanted. And so to me, even the Braves manager, Snitker, I remember watching the Braves-Dodgers series and thinking, this guy is not a good manager. Like, he made some decisions that were mind-blowing to me, but sometimes it doesn't really matter. Sometimes it works out. People will say 2020 was that for Dave Roberts. They might be right. All that to say, for me, the grass is not always greener on the other side. I don't see a guy out there that the Dodgers could go get who would be better. Now, other people might look at Gabe Kapler up in San Francisco and say, well, there's an example of a manager maximizing talent and getting way more out of a group that's less talented than the one that Roberts had. But how many Gabe Kaplers are out there? And oh, by the way, Gabe Kapler already has a job. So, like, you'd have to go find another Gabe Kapler who, by the way, was hired after an unsuccessful stint as the Phillies head coach. So I don't know. All of this, to me, the grass is not always greener. For me, I would re-sign Dave Roberts. I would let him stick around basically as long as he wants to, as long as he keeps doing what he's been doing and posting LA Dodgers record win percentages and making the World Series every 2 years. For me, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. And, even Gabe Kapler, the Giants had a great season, right? So we're not going to take anything away from them, but also a lot of their veteran players had resurgent years. And so as much as Kapler, got a lot out of some of the lesser guys on his roster, you could flip that on its head and say Dave Roberts has done sort of the same thing. Max Muncy has come out of nowhere. Chris Taylor has come out of nowhere. And, it is fans. I think a lot of fans like to say, anybody could kind of win with the roster the Dodgers had. Like you just said, the Padres sort of proved that that's not the case. And a lot of Dave Roberts' strength, which could be arguably the most important, is keeping the clubhouse together, keeping Chris Taylor understanding and accepting of the fact of, hey, I know we can't start you at X position every day, but we can move you around and more or less play you every single day. Getting Justin Turner, hey, we need you to take a day off. I know you want to be in there. Max Muncy, Mookie Betts, whatever, that type of thing. There, you can't really put a value on that, right? Like, there's no figure, there's no set way to calculate it, I guess, if you will. And like you said, the biggest thing at the end of the day is, okay, if not Dave Roberts, then who do the Dodgers get? There isn't a clear-cut answer. There isn't a candidate who you could say definitively would absolutely come, and that's an improvement. And so, because of that, like you said, just get a contract in place for Dave Roberts, and let's put this behind.
Absolutely agree. That's Matt Moreno. My name is Jeff Spiegel. As always, check out DodgerBlue.com, DodgerBlue1958 everywhere on social media. And please, please, please ring the notification bell. Click subscribe here on YouTube channel and on our YouTube channel. Tell your friends. We'd love to talk Dodgers with you as we head into what hopefully will be another successful season in 2022. We appreciate you joining us. We'll see you next time.